We're going to first look at authentication hooks. We have a couple functions we're going to use. One is getOff, and this is provided from Firebase. So it's from Firebase auth. And as well, we're going to be using a hook. So we are importing useAuthState from React Firebase hooks /auth. This is the same React Firebase hooks that we have already been using in order to do queries and things like that, use collection data and so on. This provides us a useAuthState, but we still need to actually get the authorization. What's going to happen is somewhere, probably once in our application, we are going to get the auth state. This is const auth equals get auth state. And then probably at the very top level of our application, right, wherever we need someone to be signed in, we're going to use the useAuthState hook and pass in this auth. This returns us an array of values, user, loading, and error. As we'd imagine, the first time we call this, loading is going to be true and user will be undefined. And then the second time, once it's actually finished its asynchronous call, user is going to either be defined and error be false, or user won't be defined and error will be true. What happens is first time this gets called, we have a user of undefined, we have loading is true and error is false. And then the second time we have one of two things that happens. The second time we either have our user is undefined and loading is false and error is some error, or we have a user and loading is false and error is false. So this would be a valid user. Let's just look at how this could happen, given we haven't actually looked at how to sign in. Well, what could have happened is we could have signed in earlier. A good example would be we go to Sakai, and if I've already logged into Sakai that day, I don't need to relog in. So in that case, if this were Sakai, we'd call getAuthState, and then it goes to authorization, then we call useAuthState, and we take this authorization, and the first time through, we get loading of true, and then the second time through, we would get our valid user, because it's saved that information. But if we hadn't signed in, then our user would be undefined, and we get some error like we're not logged in. This is what will be sort of at the top level of our application. Right? We will want to be able to see that we are logged in or not. And if we are logged in, then so if this is the case we have where we have a valid user, then we can go ahead and render our components that assume we're logged in. And those components can do things like use collection data and so on, because we are a logged in user as far as Firebase is concerned. However, of course, we have to look at how do we actually log in if we're not logged in. So if we end up in this situation, if we end up in this situation, then we just go ahead and render the rest of our application. If we're in this situation, we need to render something different. We don't have a user, loading is false, we need to see how to sign in. This user that we get back here, if it's valid, contains some useful fields. So one, we have an email, which is our email address. Two, we have the user ID. And we may have, for instance, a display name. For example, if we are logging in via Google, then Google will give us a display name as well as an email and a UID. We also can get information as to whether we've validated